Hey folks, I am Rebecca from Blonde in the Belly of the Beast. This is Robyn, Critical Condition. And we're back today. It's been a minute. Yeah, some stuff has happened.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a big story to tell. Everyone's been anxiously awaiting. I haven't even heard the story in detail myself, so I'm hearing it for the first time today as well. I'm really excited.
Oh, it was such a fiasco. I'm just so glad it's over, and I hope I don't put anybody off of birth. That's important to me. But my story was pretty. I had a lot of kind of rare things happen. So
yeah,
but it was highly traumatic, and I'm still kind of processing it. And I'm just really glad that we're safe and we're home and everything. But this week I have been like I don't know if I can do this again. I
give it a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I mean, I didn't have the same experience as you did, obviously, but like, I'm so excited to have another baby already.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, I can't wait. I'm like so confident that I can do it again. And I think it's like a natural thing that like ensures the continuation of our species, that mothers forget the trauma of their birth not too long after.
Yeah, for real.
So,
she's so sweet.
Yeah, she's gorgeous, and that there's a happy ending, right?
There is a happy ending,
regardless of all of what we have to do to get there. There's always a happy ending. So,
and keep me posted if you see any boob, because I don't have much. Breastfeeding, I don't have a cover, but she's a little champ. She'll just like feed for 2 hours. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really good in these early weeks. Like that's essential for getting your milk supply up and regulated.
Yeah, they had me pumping for a while, and I was like, "This is the worst."
Yeah, I've heard pumping. A lot of moms find pumping to be pretty mentally exhausting, but even just like the comfort factor, like she's been skin to skin with you for her whole life up till now. So if she wants to hang out on the boob for a couple hours, like fine. Cool. Yeah, exactly. So why don't we start at the very beginning? At what point in your pregnancy did your labor start, and how did you know that you had gone into labor?
So I was 36 weeks and 6 days, and I should tell the audience that like, this is going to be filled with TMIs. Like
it wouldn't be a birth story if it wasn't. So,
but just like the gross, I realize I have this other channel that I didn't tell anything about my personal life or anything like that. And now I'm like, my vagina. And so I'm kind of worried about it, but there's just no way to tell this story without being disgusting. So, you've been warned. You've been warned, audience. But I went pee in the middle of the night, as I have done hundreds of times during my pregnancy, because, and I actually had a midwife appointment that day. And it was the first time I had gotten in a long time. And they did an ultrasound to make sure that she was positioned correctly for birth and everything. And I was like, well, do you think I'm going to go into early labor? And she was like, no, because I was huge. I had gained 40 pounds and I was retaining tons of water. And it was so difficult to just do basic stuff. Like I was still trying to walk a mile a day, but by the end of the walk, like I would just want to cry because I was just in so much pain. And I was just like, this cannot be normal. It can't be normal. And there was a woman living across the street from my sister who was 85. She had 8 children all at home. And she saw me when I was about 34 weeks pregnant. And she was like, when's your due date? And I was like, June 27th. And she goes, are you sure? Are you sure about that? And I was like, well, why? And she's like, you're going to come early. The baby's going to come early. You need to go back to from whence you came and get ready and prepare. And I'm like, this old bitch, like, what does she know? And woman was right. She was right. Yeah. So in the middle of the night, I went pee, and then I felt like a gush of fluid. But during the ultrasound, my midwife had told me like, this baby is positioned right on your bladder. So like if you're peeing your pants, that's why. And so I was totally convinced that this was some OCD thing, that I was like, I'm just being crazy. And I just peed my pants. And then, so I like changed my underwear, I took a shower, and then I got back into bed, and then it happened again. And I was like, son of a, no, I don't want this to happen. So I like woke up my husband. I'm like, you need to smell this and tell me if it's pee. Poor guy. Poor guy. He'd be so mortified if he heard me say that.
What a trooper.
What a trooper, I know. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, I need to know if I have to go into labor and delivery right now. And so he's like, I can't tell. And I couldn't tell. I'm like smelling my sheets, smelling my underwear, but like I'm still continuing to leak fluid and simultaneously pee myself. So I know. Awful. It was really demoralizing. Yeah. So I was like, listen, babe, I'm going to go to labor and delivery. You stay here. I'm going to be back in an hour. Because I had previously gone to the ER at about, I don't know, 15 weeks thinking that I was leaking amniotic fluid. And that time I really had just peed myself. So I had been here before and I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm just being crazy. I'm 36 and 6. I don't think this is happening right now. No women in my family have given birth early. So I wasn't convinced. Oh, let me make sure my camera's okay. There we go. I just wasn't convinced. And so I told my husband not to go with me. My labor and delivery bag was not packed because that night I was like, maybe I should pack it. My husband's like, yeah, you definitely should. And I was like, I'll do it tomorrow because I'll be 37 weeks tomorrow and she's not going to come yet. So nothing was ready. And then on the way, I'm driving myself.
You drove yourself.
Yeah. I told my husband, I was like, I'll be back. It's fine. You know? So I drove myself and then like I get out of my car and I'm in like a pool of my own amniotic fluid. And I'm like, shit. God. And then I go through the ER because you can't get through labor and delivery in the middle of the night. And I'm just like, it's like a trail of amniotic fluid behind me. And like, but I'm still convinced I'm just peeing myself. I'm total denial. And like people can see that like I'm waddling around and there's just like a trail of liquid behind me all the way through the ER.
Hilarious. Oh my
I was like, oh my God. And so I get to the ER and the nurse is like, we'll test this to see if it's amniotic fluid, but like, I'm pretty sure your water broke. And I'm like, did you talk to a doctor? I'm like, I'm like being a huge bitch about it because I'm like, there's just no way. And then they did the amniotic fluid test and they're like, oh, you're having a baby today.
Wow. So you didn't feel any pop or any like physical sensation. It was just the leaking that started.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it leaked for like 12 hours. I mean, it wasn't, it was really an atypical presentation. So because I was 36 and 6, at 37, you're pretty much in the clear.
Yeah.
At 36 and 6, there's a whole bunch of preemie stuff you have to do, which was a real bummer. Right. So once you rupture, like there's a whole process of things you have to do because if you rupture first, rupturing is supposed to be like the last thing that happens before you start to push.
Yeah.
So if you rupture early, like I did, then they have to make sure that you don't get an infection because every hour that goes by, like you get a million exams in that time. Every hour that goes by, it increases your risk that the amniotic fluid and the placenta get infected. So as soon as my water broke, it was like countdown for 24 hours. And I knew that. And I was like, ugh.
That's stressful.
It's really stressful.
How did that make you feel when you found out that they were going to sort of keep you on a clock like that?
I mean, I was really stressed out about it, but I also knew that I wasn't progressing. So they did a cervical check a few hours later, and it was so painful because they have to stick their finger inside your cervix, and your pinky is more than 1 centimeter. Right. So like she told me I was a tight centimeter. And then just from that exam, I immediately started bleeding like a lot from that exam. Yeah, because my cervix was still so tight. And then she checked me a few hours later and she's like, you're still at 1. And it was so demoralizing. I was like, oh my God. So I'm like 8 hours into this. I'm still 1 centimeter dilated. So my midwife is like, listen.
And were you feeling contractions through that period from like being admitted to the no, you weren't feeling any contractions.
I was feeling like Braxton Hicks. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They just felt like pretty mild period cramps. They were irregular. If I had been having them at home, I don't even think that I would have noticed because they were just like the same as the Braxton Hicks that I'd been having for, God, when did those start? 29 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Really early for you. Really early.
Really early. So I was like, shit. And she's like, you're going to have to be induced. Like, oh, no. But at that point, my focus shifted from like fear of induction to trying to avoid a C-section at all costs, you know?
Yep.
And so, yeah, I just had to like roll with the punches. I'm like, oh, this isn't how I wanted things to go, but it doesn't matter. Like at that point, it was like, I just have to get the baby out safely and you have to be induced. There was just... There was just no way out of it. Yeah. So they gave me Pitocin and another drug. I can't remember what it's called, mifepristone, something like that. And they checked me about every 5 hours. After the first 5 hours, they're like, you're still at 1. I was like, no. And by that time, I had started having horrible contractions that were lasting 40 seconds and every 3 minutes. Yeah.
Oh my God. So you didn't even have a full 5-minute break in between each contraction? Brutal.
I had about 2.5 minutes in between each contraction. And that went on for about 4 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah, when your water has already broken, your contractions are much, much worse because you don't have that padding of water.
Of course.
And then the Pitocin contractions are also really bad.
They're notoriously like 10 million times worse than regular contractions.
Yeah. So I was having these monster contractions. I'm in the labor and delivery tub, and because I hadn't started doing my hypnobirthing because I was procrastinating this entire pregnancy, I'm just making noises like an animal. Like I'm screaming like somebody is in my house trying to rape and murder me. Yeah. And my husband is just like, what do I do? He's like, I've never heard noises like this come out of a person. You know, I've seen women in labor before, and a lot of them are like, I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I was loud too. I was loud too. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, so it was just the worst. And then at that point, my husband was like, listen, we're going to have to do this and do a second day. And you need to have the epidural. Like you need to have it. Yeah. You're having Pitocin contractions. You don't have your water. Like you've stuck this out for 4 hours. You have to do it. And I was at 1 centimeter, and I thought I was going to be sectioned at that point. And so I'm like, I'm going to listen to my husband, because he's like, there are no trophies for doing this without medication. Like you need to save your strength for pushing. And getting that permission from him was huge. It was really helpful for me. And I just felt like my husband thinks that it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do this.
That was so good of him to have done that. That was 100% the right move. Because I would have felt the same way, you know, like I would almost have felt like I was letting my husband down if he hadn't given me that permission.
Right. And I knew I was going to get an epidural, but like just hearing it from him, like, you know, because I was like, I can do more of these contractions. Like I can do more of it. He's like, but why? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So I got the epidural, and it was like immediate relief. My anesthesiologist's name was Dr. Payne, by the way.
What? Yeah. That's like some sick, cruel irony.
I know, right? He left the room, and I was like, how about Dr. No Pain? And I knew that he had heard that like a million times. He was just like, I hate these pregnant bitches so much. Like, I hate these women. But the epidural was awesome. It was like, after that, I just immediately fell asleep. And I just slept, and then they would come and check me. And then 5 hours later, she checked me, and she was like, you're at 2. And then 3 hours later, they checked me, and they were like, you're at 7.
Wow.
I was so relieved. Wow. So I went back to sleep because I couldn't feel the contractions. And
your body was obviously like progressing well while you were resting.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
I couldn't believe that I could sleep, but I was so exhausted from the contractions that it was just like, and I was watching like crappy TV shows. I watched like Sex in the City, or, you know, just to distract me from what was going on. And my husband was, you know, rubbing my shoulders every once in a while, and they were flipping me over and making sure that the epidural kind of hit both sides, which it didn't.
It didn't.
No, one of my legs I could move completely, and the other one, it was like it was dead weight. Which was fine until it becomes a problem in a minute.
But that didn't affect your pain level. It was just in the legs that one was awake.
Oh no, I felt crowning on one side.
Which was really? Terrible. Yeah. Wow, interesting. And were you not able to like I don't actually know anything about how they would fix that, but I've heard that happen before. Will they consider giving you a top up or adjusting it and giving you a second epidural?
Yeah.
Or will they just leave it?
Like you can press a button and stuff, but I was like not, and then they said they could give me other painkillers, but I was just not into it. I was just like, it's fine. Like, cause I wasn't experiencing a lot of pain at that point, and I could hardly feel the contractions. And I was afraid that if I got more of the anesthetic, that I wouldn't be able to feel the contractions at all. And you want to feel the contract, so you know when to push.
Exactly.
And then you can reduce tearing. So, I was 7 centimeters. I went back to sleep for a little bit, and then my midwife came in, checked me again, and she's like, she woke me up to check me. And then she's like, I think it's time for you to start pushing. And I was so well rested. I had gotten like 8 hours of sleep at that point that I was
amazing.
Like, let's do this. Like I was really ready. And then I started kind of feeling some contractions. I started pushing. I pushed for an hour and a half.
That's not too bad.
It's not too bad. Yeah.
Not at
all.
But
she was crowning for 40 minutes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So like kind of coming in and out sort of thing. Yeah. Right.
And that can be really demoralizing.
Well, yeah. It can be, but okay. I'll let you continue.
No, I think it might have helped me. I had no perineal tearing. So I think that might have helped. Yeah, I was really jazzed. I did have some tearing, but it wasn't in the perineum, which is really what you want to avoid. Exactly. The recovery's rough. And
yes.
And that skin isn't all foldy, so the scarring is like much more visible.
Totally.
So, but that was really demoralizing because I could feel her coming in and coming out. And so I do these like monster pushes, and I would like feel like I'm making progress, and then I would feel her like go back in, and I'm like, what the, but my midwife was such a champ, she was, but at the end of the pushing, she's like, do you want to feel the baby? And I was like, no, I absolutely do not. She's like, but sometimes you didn't want to either.
No,
I felt bad about it because, she's like, sometimes it gives women the motivation to keep pushing. And I was like, I don't know why I don't want to do this, but I just don't.
Yeah.
And she's like, do you want a mirror? I was like, absolutely not.
Same. I felt exactly the same way. I was just like, let me just sort of stay in my head. I don't even want to think about what's happening on my bottom half.
No,
I don't see it in a mirror.
Yeah, for real. I was just like, I just had to be kind of in denial. And like, we talked about this and it really helped. We talked about it in the last Motherland, how taking the labor process step by step is the way to get through it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that would catapult me into a different stratosphere of dealing with the reality of what had happened. And I don't think that mentally I was prepared, because mentally I was thinking, I'll do these 3 10-second pushes.
Yeah.
And then I'll wait for the next contract. And that's all I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think that there's a baby that is just tearing the shit out of my vagina right now. I can't think about that. I can't do it. So I just said no. And then after that, it got really hard. Like, I've heard this happens in every pregnancy or in every delivery where a point comes where you're like, I'm going to die. Like, I am going to die. And so that's when she had been crowning for like half an hour. That's when, I'm sobbing and I'm like praying out loud like a crazy person. And I'm talking to my midwife and I'm like, I'm going to die. The baby's going to die. We're going to die. We're going to die. I'm just crying. And she like stopped me and she held my hand and she's like, you guys are going to be fine as long as you can do this, as long as you can keep pushing. And like, that's when it occurred to me, like, I'm in this, like, I have to do this or my baby's going to die.
Yeah.
And then my husband like put his hand on my shoulder and he's like, you got this. I knew I was going to cry during all this.
I feel like I'm going to cry.
I know. He's like, you got this. It's going to be fine. Like, you're strong and you can do it. And the next like 3 pushes or something, her head came out. And then the next push, it's like, once the head is out, it's easy. Gravy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then I don't even know that they showed her to me, because they immediately like had to put her on oxygen for a few minutes and do her Apgar and everything like that. My husband went over to cut the umbilical cord. And like, I wasn't really super worried about what was going on with her because I was so tired. I was just like, I just could barely even, I was disoriented. Then I heard her cry and I was really relieved. And then they showed her to me and everything. And that was good. Like, the fact that she was on oxygen really bummed me out, but I didn't know until later. And then my midwife was like, listen, you have a retained placenta. And I was like, no.
Nightmare.
I know. Do you need to get your baby? We can do some super chats if you want to grab him.
Yeah, I think, he does want me to pick him up. So I'll just pop off. You can check
sure.
I'll be right back.
Hey guys, do you guys have any questions? Rebecca, how many kids did you want before you just gave birth? I mean, I've gone from wanting a lot of kids to just, because it took me a while to get pregnant, to just being like, I will be happy with the number of children that God gives me. Like, I'm so grateful for this one baby. If this is all I can do, and we're of course gonna try again, but like, I'll take as many as God will give me, and I'm going to be happy about it. So yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, ideally 3 or 4, but in actuality, 2 or 3 probably. Erica Johnson, so thankful for Blonde, expecting in October and not okay with the current state of the U.S. Thank you so much, Erica. You know, the bravest thing that you can do right now is have a baby. So you're already doing something amazing and monumental, and you're doing the right thing too. I mean, people had children in the Great Depression. They had children during all these wars and everything like that. So I know things seem really chaotic and like they're falling apart, because they are. But it still is our moral obligation, our godly obligation to continue to procreate in these times. So you should feel really good about yourself and the contribution you're making to your family and to society. And you should be really proud, and let us know how it goes in October. You can do it. You're strong. Frau Kotz says, congratulations. Thank you so much. Did you guys hear that? It sounded like an earthquake. Let's see. Do you guys have any other questions? Any other questions?
Okay. I'm back.
Perfect timing, because that was everything.
That was all the super chats.
Yeah. Let's see. What was the last thing I said? Oh, the retained placenta.
Yeah. I was really worried about that personally. You know,
yeah.
it can be pretty serious having a retained placenta.
Yeah, definitely. I was worried about it, but like after pushing, it didn't seem like a huge deal in comparison. So
yeah,
they had to give me medication to help expel the remainder of the placenta. And then it had to be manually removed.
No.
So like after pushing out this baby who was 6 pounds and 11 ounces, I still don't know how long she was. I probably should get that information.
Yeah. Get a good tape measure.
Yeah. So after pushing out this baby, you know, your midwife has to stick her entire hand inside your uterus, not your vagina. She has to get in there and then pull out.
How long after she had been birthed did you have to go through that? Like
30 minutes. They'll let you wait 30 minutes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So she was actually born at 37 weeks, like on the nose, 37 weeks, which was kind of a relief. I mean, babies want to be in there until 39, 40, 41 weeks. But like if you make it to 37,
you're fine.
You're in pretty good shape. Yeah.
And that weight on average for girls that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like,
can you imagine if maybe I'll show you guys the baby. Can you see? You see? Oh,
all the way. There she is. Bless her heart. Look at her with her little hat. Oh, she's so lovely. She's so gorgeous.
I love you, Miss Emmeline. Mommy loves you. She's like
such a pretty name as well. Did you go with a second name? You don't have to say it if you don't want to share her second name.
Oh,
but did you do?
It's Emmeline Julia.
Lovely.
That's a family name. I mean, I'm already like, people are already mispronouncing it, which is really pissing me off. But in Canada and in England, they pronounce it Emmeline.
Emmeline, right.
Which I'm not particularly fond of, but
Emmeline, it's gorgeous.
You're so sweet.
So what was the placental extraction in terms of like, what did you still have the epidural numbing you, or did you feel that happen?
I definitely felt it happen, but it felt mostly like pressure. And then like, because the baby is coming out in one direction, and then I had all this birth trauma, and then she moves up from the other direction. That was really painful. So, you know, she gets.
What would you say, like comparison, like to the actual giving birth in comparison to the placental? Which one was worse, do you think?
I mean, let's say contractions were 10.
Right.
Crowning was 8. And then the manual extraction was probably a 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But, you know, like in the situations, like you just have to do it.
Yeah, you're probably full of adrenaline at that point as well, too. So it kind of blunts how extreme of a situation that is.
Yeah. So this is kind of where the fun starts. I thought that I was like, okay, it's done. Like we're going to be able to go home in a few days. And they were like, we don't even know if we need to take her to the NICU. So it's okay. And then they like ran some of her stats through an algorithm and they're like, yeah, she has to be in the NICU. So they housed me. They let me come down every few hours to pump and try to feed her. And at that point in time, I wasn't that worried. So the next day I woke up and she's getting like her 10th exam by a neonatologist. And this neonatologist is like, she has a gastrointestinal birth defect. And at that point in time, I was like, what? Because I've talked about this before, but during my pregnancy and a little bit before, I have developed terrible obsessive compulsive disorder. So my pregnancy was characterized by like fear of certain chemical exposures. I have this whole crazy list of like everything that I've been exposed to in my pregnancy. I had called poison control truly 50 times. I was calling my midwives all the time about, you know, like I got Clorox wipes on my hands, or like I stepped on a mushroom outside. It was just everything. I got gasoline on my hands one time when I was pumping gas. It was just everything. And I was just petrified that I was going to see it through no matter what, because it's your kid and you love your kid. But my biggest fear was that this was something that I had that this was something that I had caused. And I just like melted down. Melted down. So I'm like sobbing, you know, like, did I do this? Did I do this? And she's like, no. You know, this was something that was just going to happen. And we need to take her in to see a surgeon, and you need to be transported by emergency vehicle to a hospital in Washington. So I had to see like
How long was that drive?
It was like 40 minutes. Okay. So I had to see my premature baby get loaded into this ambulance. And it was just like, I was just so terrified, and I didn't know what the surgeon was going to say. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if she was going to have to have surgery. I didn't know if this was something that I had done during pregnancy. And it was just like, I've never experienced anything so terrible in my life. And then it was just so badly handled by the doctors. Like one of the doctors came in and was like, we're not going to transport her via helicopter. And just the fact that they had like suggested that, and that I knew that they had even talked about it, I was just like, I was inconsolable. I was just totally inconsolable. So the next day they transported us, and like I rode in the ambulance with them. And because of COVID, my husband couldn't be in the NICU with me. And so I had to we had to alternate. We had to take turns we couldn't be there together with the baby because Washington laws are different than in Idaho. I'm sorry. I knew there was going to be a lot of crying. No, I should have brought my Kleenexes, but
imagine going through that, Rebecca.
It was just, it was just a nightmare. And then we get there and they're like, listen, the surgeon's not going to be available until tonight. So like go to the cafeteria and eat something. You guys look terrible. So we're like, okay, let's go eat. We'll leave the baby here. Like 5 minutes after we left, the surgeon came and we were gone. And she did like all of these exams on her. And then we came back up and they're like, oh, you just missed the surgeon. I was like, you sons of bitches. I was so mad. I was like, it took everything I had to not just berate these people because I wanted to hear what she had to say. And so there was some attending. She wasn't even a nurse, who like pulled me off to the side and she's like, listen, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I saw the surgeon do the exam. And she's like, don't tell anybody that I told you this. I saw the surgeon do the exam and she said that she's completely normal. So I wanted somebody to talk to my dad. And so I made one of these doctors talk to my dad because nobody would talk to me. I was like, the surgeon needs to come back up and she needs to tell me what she saw because I don't know what's going on. No one's telling me anything. I can't be in here with my husband, and I don't know if there's something wrong with my baby, and I want to be at home, and I need somebody to tell me what is going on, like to my face. And they're like, nope, surgeon's busy. And I'm like, someone's going to call my fucking dad and tell him what's going on. Like someone's going to tell him. So I got one of the neonatologists to do that. And he talked to my dad and he said like, everything's fine. Like there's no defect. She's a perfectly healthy baby. She's in the clear. You'd never have to follow this again. And then the next day I got that surgeon to come into my room by like throwing a huge tantrum. And I talked to her and she's like highly credentialed and everything like that. She was a really good doctor. And she's like, she had canceled all the ultrasounds and everything that they were going to do after. And she's like, nope, your baby's totally fine. And you guys don't ever have to like follow up on this, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
I can't even imagine the relief. Yeah. Like those doctors should have been like, they should have been there telling you all of this the minute that they knew. It's so not right that they left you hanging like that and that you had to actually fight to get some sort of response. Yeah, that's not how you should treat a new mom.
Yeah, but I also know that they were like really understaffed because of COVID, and they had to follow all these ridiculous rules. And I heard the nurses just bitching about it because, you know, they don't want to follow these protocols either.
Yeah.
And I had to take the baby's temperature a lot because she was preemie. So,
yeah.
But they only had these really shitty thermometers, and like I had to take them 3 times. They took 15 seconds. There was always like a 3-degree difference in the thermometer. And I'm like, what is going on with this? And one of the nurses was like, we had to give all of our good thermometers to COVID patients for COVID testing. And then we had to use these back ordered thermometers that barely work.
Oh my God.
And I was like, this is the NICU, like premature babies.
Yeah. How are they not prioritizing premature babies?
No. And so it was just like, I was so angry with the medical community at that point.
Yeah.
You know, that like I had nowhere to stay the first night. They just like put me on this filthy couch and I just like came in to breastfeed, and then they were mandating that I pump after breastfeeding. So that was a big pain in the ass too. Although now I'm glad I did it because my milk supply is really good.
Awesome.
So we ended up staying in the NICU for 5 days after that because she had high bilirubin. And I was staying at a hotel across the way, and then I would just come over. This was in Spokane, so I didn't want to walk at 3 a.m. And so my poor husband had to like drive me 2 blocks and everything like that. So yeah, we were about to get discharged. Her bilirubin had come down. She was under these bilirubin blankets, and I was breastfeeding her with like an IV and everything like that. Oh, something I forgot to say about my birth. The day that I went to my midwife, I was tested for group B strep. And the results hadn't come back yet. And so they had to presumptively treat me for group B strep, which is very painful. So I was on this IV that shoots like stinging ice cold fluid into your veins all the time. They had to treat me for group B strep. And then 12 hours into the IV fluids, they were like, your results came back, you're group B strep negative. I was like,
so they were doing that because your amniotic fluid had broken, correct?
No, they were doing that because my group B strep, because I had been tested that day, hadn't come back yet. And so they just had to.
No. Okay,
yeah. Yeah. I know. And so like I having that IV was such a pain.
Like as if you needed that on top of everything else. Like
I know. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse.
Oh my God. Good Lord.
So because this hospital in Spokane is huge, it's like this crazy labyrinthian hospital. Like a few days after my labor, because I had to walk all the way from the emergency room to the NICU, I look at my phone, and that day I had walked 3 miles, and it was like right after I'd given birth and stuff.
Whoa.
And so I'm going to the bathroom, and they told me like, because you have a retained placenta, be on the watch for like clots that are larger than an egg, and some other things, fever, things like that. And they had to discharge me a little bit early. So I wasn't taking my prenatals. I wasn't taking these ibuprofen that I needed. I wasn't taking these stool softeners that I needed. And I wasn't paying attention at all to any of this because I just wanted to make sure that my baby was okay. And I just did not care what was going on with me. Oh, I also had, before I forget, I had 2nd-degree tearing that was non-perineal, and it's been like no big deal. It just
awesome.
Yeah. So
that's great news.
Which is something that we talked about, and we were both really worried about it.
Yeah, I think most women are. It's impossible not to worry about it. But you're absolutely right that it's the perineum that is the really scary thing, right?
Yes. Like, yeah.
That when you tear that, like a lot of the times it can even affect later on down the line. You know what I mean? With your with like passing stools, future or later on, if you have another baby, that kind of stuff. So, but normally if it's just like either in the vagina or above, like that just normally heals like nothing ever happened based on
right. I mean, I'm 10 days out and I feel like 80%. you know.
Amazing. It's crazy how fast you heal as well. Like I had I had what they called grazing, which it's like micro tearing in like one location. And the way my midwife described it, she was like when you have like an ulcer on the inside of your mouth, it will, once it starts to heal, it's healed within like 48 hours, and it's not that different with that part of your body, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can still feel my stitches and stuff, but it's not too bad. And we're going for walks and oh, she just totally pooped. So because of all this walking, presumably, the last night that I was there, they let me room in with my husband with the baby. But there were all these stipulations. And then like before they let me room in, they were like, you know, these are the rules you have to follow. You can't lock your door. We're going to come check. I felt like my baby had been kidnapped, like truly. We're going to come check in on you to make sure that, you know, nothing's going wrong. And then they were like, if you're asleep in the bed and your baby's asleep in the bed, like we will call CPS.
What?
Yeah. If you're co-sleeping with the baby.
Like policing how you're sleeping with your baby.
Yeah.
What the heck? So where did the baby sleep? Like in like a bassinet or something?
In a bassinet, yeah. I didn't get very good sleep because
I'm so sorry. That's
I know
ridiculous.
It was terrible. But they let my husband room in that night, even though we couldn't be in the same ward in the NICU, even though we couldn't be in the actual NICU together.
Right. So they gave you that like little bit of flexibility. They probably felt bad.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was freaking out the whole time and everything like that, and it was just terrible. So that night, I go to the bathroom and like when you leave labor and delivery, they give you all sorts of stuff. Like they give you these crazy maxi pads, like witch hazel pads. They give you this stuff called Dermaplast, which is the best. It's like benzocaine that you can spray on your vagina, and it has been a lifesaver. It just really helps numb the area so that you can live normally for a little while. Yeah. They give you all this stuff. So I look in one of like my giant hospital pads, and there is a blood clot that is about the size of my fist. And
that must have been terrifying.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what is going on? And I didn't see my placenta, so I didn't know what it looked like. So I immediately call my midwife, and I'm like, you know, she's asking me to like describe it to her. And I said it was like a jelly-like consistency. And so she was relieved by that. She's like, well, that's probably a blood clot. It's probably not placenta. So if it happens again, go to the ER. So naturally it happened again with a much smaller clot. And then I started getting a terrible leg cramp, which we've talked about before.
Right.
I got one of those, just like wake you up in the middle of the night leg cramps that was just excruciating. So I did that trick that your midwife told you where, you know, you rub your foot, but it just wasn't going away. And it was just really hurting. And so I call my dad and I call my midwife, and they're like, you got to go to the ER. I'm like, oh no.
Because it could have been, it could have been a blood clot in your leg, right? Like that could have been something that would have been fatal if you hadn't gone straight away.
So I have to go to this disgusting Spokane ER. There's like a bum tripping out. This is just downstairs from the NICU. And this is when they're trying to discharge us. There's a bum tripping out. He's not wearing a shirt. He smells terrible. He doesn't know what's going on. They sit him down on this like cloth chair, and they use a cuff around him, and then they wheel him in before me. And I'm like sitting in the waiting room, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you people serious with this? And in front of a girl who had just gotten in a horrible car accident. And I was like, I can't believe, we should just euthanize these people so that they don't take up space in the medical system. I was so pissed. And so then they call me over to take my vitals. They sit me in the same chair as this filthy bum, like with like my destroyed vagina, and like they put the same cuff on me and everything like that. And then I have to like go upstairs in these filthy clothes and breastfeed my newborn baby. It was just a nightmare. Anyway, so finally they call me back. They're like, you need an ultrasound of your leg. You need a pelvic ultrasound. I'm like, fine. They were trying to say that I needed a transvaginal ultrasound. And I was like, absolutely not, because I just gave birth and nobody's sticking anything in my vagina right now, because I could get an infection and then I could die. So, and I'm not doing that at this hospital.
And it's not necessary. They can try with the normal,
with the regular ultrasound. Exactly. And so that's what I said. And then they housed me across from this woman that was like screaming, this old woman that was screaming about how her father had molested her. Like, it was just a nightmare. And she just was screaming the whole time. She's like, I could tell she had been 5150, that she was being held on an involuntary psychiatric hold. And I just have to listen to her while I'm in there waiting.
That must have been so traumatizing. Oh my freaking God.
I know. And I'm just thinking, like, I can't believe that this has all happened. I can't believe it. So then they go and we do a leg ultrasound. That turns out fine. They do a pelvic ultrasound. They come back into the room where I'm waiting, and they're like, you have retained products in your uterus. We need to schedule you for a DNC. And I was like, I just melted down. I'm like, my baby is upstairs. We were about to get discharged. I cannot have a DNC. I can't do it. You have to go under general anesthetic sometimes. Yeah. I can't do it. I'm like, you need to call my OB-GYN and ask them, because I'm not having any unnecessary surgical procedures.
Yeah.
Call my OB-GYN, not my midwife, my OB-GYN.
Yeah.
And so they did. And then they came back in 10 minutes later and they're like, oh, your OB-GYN said that radiologists can't tell the difference between retained placenta in an ultrasound and blood clots. So these are probably blood clots. Don't do anything about it. And if you get a fever, call your doctor.
Imagine like if you hadn't stood your ground there, and then, days after giving birth, you then had to go in for an unnecessary DNC.
Oh my God. I know. It's like,
what the heck?
And so since then, like, I've passed a few small blood clots, but I've mostly been on the mend, and baby's fine. She's still jaundiced. Her bilirubin is still pretty high. We went to the pediatrician Friday and everything seems fine, but like, we're home and I'm safe and the baby's safe. And as far as I know right now, I don't have to have a DNC, and I don't think I have an infection because I don't have a fever or a lot of pain outside of what is probably normal for normal birth trauma. But like, I don't know how to feel about all of this, because on the one hand, after I ruptured, there was no chance that I would have been able to have a home birth. Any midwife would have been like, you're 37 weeks, you have to go to the hospital. You're going to have to be induced.
100%.
But I became so much more sympathetic to the home birth community because of all of the potential unnecessary intervention that happened subsequently. They could have operated on my newborn baby unnecessarily if this surgeon didn't have her shit together, which she did. They could have given me an unnecessary DNC.
Yeah.
And all of it was,
and just the general discomfort.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, just,
it was
terrible. All you want after you give birth is just to be cozy in a safe place with your baby, with your husband, and to be taken care of. Right. And for what, like a week, you were having to think about literally everyone else but yourself.
Yeah, I just forgot.
Managing your people who are supposed to be giving you care, making sure they were on their shit.
Yeah.
You were separated from your husband for a large portion of it.
Definitely.
Right? Like
and then the protests were crazy in Spokane too. And so like, and everything was locked down. So when we wanted to get dinner, like one night we ate sushi in our car and a bunch of protesters were like walking past us and stuff. And I was like, the world's gone crazy. I can't trust the medical system. But at the same time, like I had to be there.
Yeah.
My hands were tied.
You didn't have a choice. No, you didn't.
Yeah. So it just took this experience that should have been so joyous, and it made it a fucking nightmare. This was just, I'm so happy my baby is normal and healthy, and like, she's so beautiful and I love her so much. But I resent that I was robbed of a normal birth story.
Yeah.
Because the labor and delivery, I know it sounds really bad, you guys. Like the live chat's like, oh my God. I know it sounds really bad, but after the labor, I was like, that wasn't as bad as I had expected.
The labor wasn't.
No, right. I was like, that was fine. I expected much worse, and it was over and everything like that. And the baby was fine. And so I was kind of like, that was it. Okay. And then life was like, oh no, bitch, don't get comfortable. We got more to throw at you. It was all the stuff that was subsequent that was just so much worse. And I just resent that we had to be put through that.
I can't imagine. It's a really rough way to start your postpartum. And I really hope that you'll give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of time to process this, because you could be, months and months and months trying to process what you went through as a new mom.
Yeah.
Like you're not only worried about your baby in that scenario and her health, but then yourself as well. So like, that's like a double whammy of just like all the fears that every mom worries about. Right.
Yeah,
and you had to endure that during a pandemic and during like some of the worst riots that America have ever seen. So like, it's like the perfect storm of stressors.
Oh, I know. Yeah. And then I called my midwife like a few days ago, and because they test your amniotic fluid and your placenta to see if you actually had an infection.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, to inform follow-up care, I assume. I don't know. And so when I talked to my my midwife about it later, she was like, you guys never had an infection. So we were treated with all sorts of antibiotics and everything like that, because both of us spiked a fever and we were both tachycardic. But that was probably just from the epidural, from labor stress, from things like that. She had a little bit of inflammation in her blood work that went away immediately. But otherwise, there was no evidence that I had ever had an infection. So I'll never know what caused the premature membrane rupture. They think that it was probably just like a soft spot in the sac that just got ripped apart for whatever reason. You were having
some pretty intense Braxton Hicks as well. Like,
right.
Could have been a Braxton Hicks and then coupled with maybe a weak spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I was just so relieved that it wasn't an infection, because that was something else that I was worried about. Like, oh my God, did I have untreated, I don't know, BV, and that's what caused this? I was so hyper focused on, did I cause this? Did I cause this? And everybody kept telling me like, no, and it doesn't matter. I'm like, matters to me. I need to know if I endangered my baby. Like, she's not even out of my womb yet, and I'm already screwing stuff up, I guess. But it was just like a continuation of my pregnancy, like the guilt of not doing everything perfectly, of, because when you're pregnant, you get exposed to stuff because we live in a world filled with toxins and stuff like that. And it's just unavoidable. Like it's just unavoidable. And these things happen, but I took it much harder than your average person. I wasn't able to like let go of these things like the average pregnant woman. So just hearing that, like, something's wrong with my baby, I just lost my, like, honestly, I thought that they might put me on a psychiatric hold. It was really bad. I was just melting down, and everybody was acting like this just wasn't a big deal. It was really pissing me off.
That's not right either. That, you don't deserve to feel like your worries. Like you were, I think, and you just admitted it yourself, you were like kind of more on high alert than probably your standard mom, right? Like
I'd say so. Yeah.
You would be trying to find ways to make yourself feel bad, right? And blame yourself for stuff that you shouldn't have been blaming yourself for. Yeah. But at the same time, like gaslighting a mom and like making her feel like she's crazy for, expressing traumatic emotions, venting traumatic emotions and stress. That's not right either.
Well, they're like, we don't know if we're going to have to give her surgery, and we're not going to take her in a helicopter. And so when I was freaking out about that, my husband was like, why are you freaking out? They said they're not taking her in a helicopter. I'm like, but why would they even say that to me? Why would they even say that to me? Like, they know I have a history of obsessive compulsive disorder. They know that I think that I caused this through some like toxin or something like that. Like, they needed to treat me differently than other patients.
Yes.
Because of my neuroses and the OCD. And then I then think that they just really dropped the ball on that. I will say that my midwife just killed it. She just killed it. She kept me calm. And then the next day when she found out about this birth defect, she like immediately came down and got me, walked me to the NICU. And during that walk, she's like, I don't think this is a big deal. I don't know why they're taking you by emergency transport. I want you to stay calm because I think that nothing is going to come of this. And that's what my husband was saying too. And so it was a lot of people keeping me calm. And then my parents were keeping me calm too, because they've been staying here. Even though the next day after she was cleared for everything, they were like, oh, we were freaking out about this. I'm like, oh. That's
a very good support system. That's exactly what they should have been telling you, the mom, in that scenario.
Definitely.
Feeding into your fears is not gonna make that situation better for anyone. It's not gonna help at all.
Right. But it was only when I interacted with a doctor that this happened. So I feel really conflicted about it, because like my midwife and the nursing team did just a stand-up job during my labor and delivery. And it was really only once I had contact with a neonatologist that things started to go south. But then the surgeon was so great that, and the neonatologists at the worst hospital were also really great. So I'm like, I don't even know what to make of this experience that I've had.
It's a confusing experience because on the one hand, you're like, thank God that I was able to be there, but also, gosh, that really sucked at the same time.
I know. And the whole time I'm thinking like, I just wish I had Robyn's birth story. Like,
aww.
I just wish. And you were so helpful during all this too. Like I was on Skype, like, what do I do? What do I do during all this? And it was really helpful to like have people that I could talk to during all of it and to have support and for people to be like, you need to get a second opinion about this. It's okay to do this. These interventions are necessary. These interventions are unnecessary. Not having to do this alone was huge because I was mentally not in a place where I could make my own decisions. And I needed my husband, I needed my parents, I needed you, and I needed like the amalgamation of everybody's advice to help inform me about how I should proceed and what's best for the baby. Because truly, when a doctor, people trust doctors. And when a doctor tells you something like your baby needs surgery and that's what's best for your baby, what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
And my mom was especially good about it. She was like, listen, if they suggest that she needs surgery for this, like we're going to get the best doctors from Seattle Children's. We're going to talk to doctors at St. Luke's in St. Louis. Like we are going to talk to all of the best gastroenterologists, pediatricians, neonatologists, pediatric surgeons in the country. And we're going to figure out if this is truly necessary before any steps are taken. And that made me feel a lot better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've heard women say that like, there was a birth story I was listening to where the woman was in labor and one of her friends came into the room in the hospital and she was wearing a Wicked t-shirt, like Disney Wicked or something like that. And the word Wicked was like spelled in spooky letters or something. And even that, just like, the fact that there was like a negative word in her birth space, it totally threw her out of her headspace, and it made her feel really like icky and like she wanted the woman to be out of her space. And in retrospect, she was like, that seems crazy. Like, I can't even believe that I'm saying that I really felt like a t-shirt turned me off that much. But I think, this is why women are so protective of their birth spaces right now, and that's why home birth is becoming more mainstream, is because like, when you're in the hospital, and your story proves this, you are at the mercy of total circumstance, right? Like who you encounter, what you can hear, the smells, the doctors that you're interacting with, like that's all up in your face and it's in your space. And it's very, very influencing on how you emotionally are feeling at the time. And unfortunately, medical staff, they're like, I'm here to do a job. Right. Like I'd say just in terms of their personalities, because they're in medicine, they're kind of like, like not an emotional care, not that they're not caring, but like they're more analytical type people. They're probably more cold. Right. And that's because they're just like, they're more intelligent or whatever. They're not like a softy type person, but that comes across as being careless. Yeah. Right. Insensitive when you're a woman in labor, and what you really want is someone to comfort you and
exactly. Which is why I chose to birth with the midwives in the hospital. So
that
I was like,
so smart. Yeah.
They did such a good job. And that's so true about the t-shirt. Like when I was in the NICU in Washington, we have to share rooms, and there was another baby in the room who had been there for 3 months, she had ruptured at 25 weeks with twins.
Oh no.
And one of the twins died, and then the other one was microcephalic, and she was like, the baby's not going to live for much longer. This is basically palliative.
And you were sharing a room with this person?
And the chick, even though she had had this really horrible experience, like she was just trying to make conversation with me, and she's like, they found a body in the Spokane River today. And I was like, that's a weird thing for her to say. And like, I was not super comfortable with like the way she was holding her baby. She was like rocking her baby really hard. And so I was like, I don't know about this. So, like, I went to go get something to eat with my husband. And then we're like halfway down the hallway, and I'm like, I can't leave her in the room with my baby. I'm like, I know this sounds crazy. And my husband was like, yeah, that's sort of crazy, but like, I don't know, maybe we were like 10 minutes away or something. And I just turned back around, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait her out.
Yeah.
She was just like a woman that had had a terrible experience that was trying to make conversation with their roommate. You know, I'm sure she was totally benign. But I just like had this overwhelming fear that she was going to kill the baby. You know, I was like, she's going to kill my baby.
I would have felt exactly the same. I feel like even for her and for you, it shouldn't be legal to stick women who have like children that are in the hospital after labor with health complications together.
Right.
People deserve their own space. Like, I don't care if you're, you know, a monetized hospital, you're trying to make money, you're trying to conserve space. Like,
yeah,
she deserved her own space, and so did you.
Yeah. Yep. I know that does sound kind of crazy. And like, I actually felt really bad because I'm like, this woman, you know, I'm coming out of this with a healthy baby and we get to go home, and like, this woman's never going to have a normal life after what happened to her. It was just so sad. But still my reaction was like, must protect baby from crazy mom, even though she was probably like a fine person. Yeah. So, you know, I definitely understand that. That's your friend with the t-shirt. That I get it.
Yeah.
So that pretty much brings us up to speed. I mean, her bilirubin, she's still jaundiced, so I think we're going to go in for a bilirubin test, like maybe now, but like feedings at night have been just a cakewalk, and she's just such a little delight because everything seems so much easier now.
Yeah.
Because it's just
You're
like
home.
Because I'm home, and it's just like all I have to do is wake up in the middle of the night and stare at my beautiful daughter while she breastfeeds. And
I know, like, I don't understand how people complain about night feeding. It's like such a special time.
It's a special time. And the plan was that we were going to co-sleep, and then my husband was going to move upstairs, but we have a bedside bassinet that like rotates onto your bed. Oh, amazing. And I just thought it wasn't going to work, but it totally has worked. And now my husband and I can continue sleeping in the same bed, which I think is really important for a marriage.
Massively, yes.
And so I'm really happy about that. And he's not waking up at all. When like she just like cries ever so gently, and my hormones are like, and I wake up and I feed her and I change her, and then we do a little skin to skin, and then I put her back, and then 2 hours later I do it again, and I wake up every morning and she's fine, and she's healthy, and I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that I escaped this without anything worse happening.
Yeah.
And I love her so much, you know. Yeah, we got through it. So
I hope you feel like an absolute warrior for getting through it. And that may take time, because right now it's still very raw and real, and I get that. But the amount of strength that you must have to have gotten through that, I mean, I can't. It makes me want to cry. Like,
But the thing about it, you would have too, though. Like, the thing about stuff like this is that when there are complications and your child is involved, like, you just realize that you just have to do what's necessary. You have to do it. I mean, my back was against the wall. It's not like I could just be like, oh, I'm just not going to deal with this.
Yeah.
And so you reach inside and you find the strength to do it. And like, thank God my parents are here, and that my husband is so supportive, and that, you know, that I have like medical people that I can talk to that I trust. And I'm just so grateful, and friends like you. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to come home with a healthy baby. And like, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Like, my feelings about it don't really matter that much. But it's just crazy. Like, as soon as I saw her, it was just like the love that I felt for her. It's crazy. It just bowled me over. It was like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. It was like the first love you've ever had when you're a teenager, but just on crack, just on steroids. I just looked at her and I'm like, I can't believe that you are what has been inside of me for 9 months. And like, I finally get to meet you. And it's just such like a joy and a privilege to be your mom.
I feel that way about my boy too. It's amazing. And it's crazy to think about, but like in that moment, those first few moments when you make that bonding, right, with your baby, you think that you can't possibly hold any more love in you. And I promise you, it just every single day, you're going to fall more and more and more in love with that little nugget. And it's quite amazing the infinite nature of a mother's love. I don't think there's any limitations to it.
No, but it's so crazy. Like in the hospital, I was thinking about, you know, feminism and like how women are being robbed of this experience.
Yeah.
And that's very sad to me that like that women are being cheated out of this joy.
They are. They're cheating themselves out of it, and they're being propagandized from the time that they're like, you know, 13, 14 years old, maybe even younger, with the sort of images that we see of pregnancy on TV, right? There's no balance between the fact that, yeah, we as women can really be put through the ringer to get our babies, just like you were. But I'm sure that you and every mom out there would do it all again.
In a heartbeat. If I had to live that day, if I had to live that horrible day like over and over again, and I still got to meet my baby every day, like I would do it until I die. I really would. Because just knowing her for this little period of time has been I'm really hormonal too, so has just been such a joy, you know.
Well, congratulations, Mama. You friggin' did it.
Thank you so much. I really like, I just, you know, I should say this offline, but I really appreciate your friendship through all of this. It's just been through the pregnancy and through the birth. It's just having you in my life has been a real blessing.
Yeah, the feeling is very mutual. And then we get to be moms together. Yeah. We get to go through all the difficult stuff of raising and being moms as they grow together as well. And I feel very blessed to have you
when she's a real pain in the ass when she's 14, I'm going to be like, you don't even know what I went through to bring you into this world. And then I'll show her this episode from when I was way hotter.
You won't know until she's a mother herself. And then definitely. That's how it's been for me too. You know, you don't realize what your mom went through for you and how much she loves you.
I know. And then having my mom here too, it's like, gosh, you did this 3 times and I was such a pain in the ass and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did this to you. You know, and she's like, oh, you were a joy until you were about 13.
We all are.
I know. Oh, live chat. I'm sorry that we've been crying, but you know, I knew this was going to happen.
Everyone in the chat's like, I'm literally crying. I'm so emotional right now.
But if you guys have any questions, we can answer before we head out.
I think there was a few super chats that happened while you were in the middle of your birth story, but I've lost track of them. If you can see them, feel free to read them out.
Yeah, let's see. The last one I read was okay. K-Max McDonald says, Blonde, once you have 1 kid, you can just think the next goal is 2, 1 step at a time. Do you wish you have a boy now that you have a girl? I don't know. I truly don't care. If I had like 5 daughters, I'd be so jazzed. I just don't give a shit anymore. It's like healthy kids.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all that matters.
I can hear her pooping right now and it gives me extra joy because I thought it was a gastrointestinal problem. So
it's so weird. Like I don't even know if maybe this is too TMI, but as a mom, you will understand. Any mom out there will understand. Like, especially in the first few months, like the poo is a vital sign, right? You can check their health and how they're doing by, you know, they're looking at their poo. And it's like such a relief every single time he poos to me, because I'm just like, okay, yeah, you're good. Everything looks okay. Yeah.
But bright yellow poo. That's good. Good.
Yeah, I never thought I would be like spending so much time analyzing the consistency and color of poo.
That's so true. But you know, it's good. It's good. It also doesn't smell, for those of you that are like, ew, baby poop. Like I'll change diapers and then have them right next to my head when I'm sleeping. I'm like, I can't smell anything. It's totally fine. Jess T says, Blonde, do you think if you had proper prenatal care, you wouldn't have had all these issues? I know COVID caused problems for you getting care. I don't think it would have made a difference at all, because I didn't have preeclampsia. I didn't have, oh, what noise is that? Are you too hot? I didn't have gestational diabetes. And my premature membrane rupture was not due to an undiagnosed infection. It was just something that kind of randomly happened. So I actually don't think it would have mattered at all.
Probably not.
But
someone in the regular chat asked, what time was the baby born? I guess what time of the day?
2:56 a.m.
Oh, wow. So kind of like the middle of the night almost.
Yep, definitely. Jess T says, God bless you and baby. Thank you so much, Jess. I really appreciate it. Two-way, this will be a wonderful story for your kid in years to come. I suggest you take copies of the video. Yeah, she's going to watch this so that she knows what I've been through. K-Max McDonald, for Robyn and Blonde for baby support, diapers, and food. God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's so nice. Let me scroll down. KD, a big donation. Thank you. God bless you and your baby. We have very similar birth stories, and the best way to make sure you don't retain any lasting trauma from your labor is to work through it in therapy. Don't forget to take care of yourself while taking care of your baby. Definitely. I will definitely be talking about this with my therapist.
Message to you. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Squirrel says, Blonde, my heart breaks for your experience. I'm so thankful you're both okay. I really hope you are getting the TLC and professional care through postpartum. Hospitals need to rethink their patient care. I couldn't agree more.
100%.
Definitely. And as far as we've talked about anxiety, Robyn had some postpartum anxiety. I think you're probably still dealing with a little bit.
Yeah.
If I don't want to project on you, I haven't talked to
you
about
it. No, I am. It's not as bad as what it was, but I definitely haven't been able to get rid of it entirely, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that something that's neglected in postpartum care is everybody thinks that all concerns and all depression and all anxiety is just like, is just like a normal part of having a baby, but some of it's really not. And like you can't see my boob, can you?
Nope, not at all. You're good.
So the real key there is to be able to differentiate what is normal and what is, debilitating. And I think a lot of clinicians and therapists are good at that.
Yeah.
She just farted so loud. That's a good baby. I feel good, baby. So I think that mental health is something that people that just gave birth really need to watch.
Massively.
Thank you, squirrels. I appreciate that. Let's see. Do we have any more? Dovetail 55. Congrats, Rebecca. Enjoy every moment with her. I will.
Teresa, the kid, says, see, Matt needs to chill. We're like literally both breastfeeding right now. And it's
Are you even breastfeeding?
Yeah, I'm wearing like a tunic. So he's underneath my tunic.
Did not even notice. How long have you been doing it?
Since I picked him up, when I went and got him and came back, he's been kind of like popping on and off my boob and snoring and eating and dozing and just living his best life.
Wow. I didn't even know.
I'm an experienced breastfeeder now.
Yeah, good for you. I did want to talk a little bit about breastfeeding before we close out. So I met with a lot of lactation consultants, and like they were pushing me to do this cross cradle hold, and then I kept telling them like, this is not comfortable. It's not working for us. But they're like, no, this is. It's when you hold the baby and in the opposite way that feels natural, and then you express milk with your dominant hand. So like you're squeezing your boob with your right hand, and then you're holding your baby. It was so uncomfortable. I'm like, I just want to hold the baby in the crook of my arm with their head, and then express. Then I can still express with my dominant hand. But they just kept pushing this hold. It was pissing me off so much. And then they told me like, if she's gulping, you need to detach her from the latch.
What? No.
And I was like, I'm not doing that either. And they were like, well, because she's like she's a preemie, she's working on her suck, swallow, spit reflexes. Like if she's gulping too much, take her off the latch. And I was like, no.
Seems not chill to me. That doesn't make sense.
Right. So I also want to encourage new moms to like, even if you don't know what you're doing, like we didn't, and you don't have a lot of guidance, trust your instincts. And like, if something feels unnatural to you, even if a professional is telling you, I did have some really great lactation consultants. I should say that too. If somebody,
you need to have that.
Yeah, definitely. If somebody's telling you something that you know doesn't work for the rhythm of you and your baby, then like you're the mom and you make your own decisions and you do what's comfortable for you. And have confidence in your own natural instincts to take care of your baby, because nobody else can do it and nobody can tell you how to do it. And just have confidence in that. Do what is best for you and your child. And that's listening to yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Those instincts are very powerful things. I mean, even for me with my breastfeeding experience, I originally thought, because everyone told me you have to burp after every single feeding.
Right, which I haven't been doing.
I haven't been doing either because he doesn't need it. But like sometimes when he is like if he wakes up in the morning after maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleeping and my breasts are very full, then there's like a large letdown, and then he's kind of gulping and gasping the milk down. Right. In those situations, he might get a bit of air, right? And I can tell when he needs to be burped because he's like, and he's like squirming and being fussy and not cool. And then I just burp him and he's fine. But that happens like 10% of the time with the feedings.
Yeah.
And so I just don't do it. Like, why am I gonna?
I think a lot of the advice is for bottle fed babies, because I find that she's not really burping. And when she spits up, even if she's laying on her back, it's just liquid. It just dribbles down the side of her face. I think that they're worried that the baby's going to aspirate on the breast milk.
Maybe.
Is that why? I don't know. But they told me, like 15 minutes of breastfeeding on each side, 10 minutes of burping. And they like checked in on me to make sure I was following that schedule. And so being at home has been a big relief, because I'm like,
you can just breastfeed for 2 hours and do whatever you do. What feels right.
Right. They kept telling me that if she breastfeeds for more than 30 minutes, that she's burning more calories than she's taking in. And I was like, that sounds made up. Like, I know you guys are medical professionals or whatever the fuck, but it wasn't that long ago that you were telling everybody that they needed to circumcise their babies, or that they needed to be formula fed for health. My mom told me that her mother and all of her mother's friends were told that they had to give formula because they weren't producing enough breast milk. They weren't guided on how to be better producers. They weren't told to hand pump because that helps increase. They weren't told like the ways that they can improve their own production. And so all of this whole generation of boomers bottle fed babies on formula.
My mom,
no wonder.
My mom was told, and I only found out this not that long ago because I was asking her questions about her experience with breastfeeding. And she didn't breastfeed me, and she's like, it's one of my biggest regrets of my whole life. But she didn't do it because the doctor told her that our breast milk is deficient in nutrients. And if you want your baby to get all of the essential nutrients, you have to go with a fortified formula. And it's only women who are poor, who can't afford to buy the better version, the better formula, that would resort to breastfeeding. So
that is fucking crazy.
Poverty shamed her. But like, this was obviously in the 80s. So times were different even from what they are now. But the amount of misinformation that was spread during that time about why breast is best and why you should at least attempt to do it, it's just very different. So yeah.
Get a little.
She's so gorgeous. Look at her little head. She's got a lot of hair too. Bless her. She's gonna be blonde just like you.
I think so. Yeah. So jaundiced. Are we caught up on super chats?
I think so. Let me just see here. There was one. Yeah, I think we have. So we can call it a day. I think that was a really incredible story that you gave us. Thank you for being so vulnerable and so honest about all of it. You're a total hero, and I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that are really inspired by you showing the real raw side of birth, that they didn't get from my story, right?
No, your story is heroic. I mean, you did it all without any drugs, and like it just went perfectly. And I'm so happy that you had that experience. And yeah, I'm just overjoyed. And so we've talked about the juxtaposition between your home birth story and my hospital birth, like before both of them happened, and like now I think people will be able to do a better job about weighing the possibility of intervention against home birth. And like, you do have to do a cost benefit analysis. And like, Absolutely. If you rupture like me, you can't do a home birth. And if you're high risk, if you're breech still, probably shouldn't do a home birth. But like, I did come out of this being more sympathetic to wanting to birth at home because the medical system just fucked with me so much. So I hope that we informed you guys to some degree. And I think now that we've kind of like found some rhythm with our babies, even though my baby's only 10 days old, she might get really hard. Who knows? I think we can probably do some more content. So
yeah, hopefully. Well, we should try and stick to like the same day every week and the same time every week. That'll help with regular viewership. So I don't know. We can talk about that off air and then like alert the viewers maybe next week, when we'll be trying to schedule a stream.
Okay, sure. We did have one more just come in. Erica Johnson said, my first wouldn't latch for over a month and I was so defeated. That's rough. That is rough, because mine was a natural latch right away and it made breastfeeding just super easier. Yeah. When they won't latch, that's really hard.
Stressful.
If anybody's going through that now, the first day my baby wouldn't latch and I used a nipple guard and it helped tremendously. It's like the top of a bottle, but for your actual nipple. And sometimes it's just better able to fill their mouth. So maybe that's something that you could try, but.
And there's also something called a tongue tie, which it's an invasive thing that they cut the little thing underneath your tongue because sometimes it's too long and that can prevent them from getting a good latch and a good suction. So you don't want to do it, you know, without making sure that it's necessary. But sometimes it can be like an anatomy thing where their little tongues are restricted and they're not able to get a good latch as a result of that. This is why lactation consultants are essential from day one. You need to have a professional there that's able to assess you and your baby so that you can not end up in a situation where you're like struggling to breastfeed 4 weeks out, right?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Because you need that colostrum exchange too.
Yeah.
Really important. And then the last super chat is Caper2X. No note. Thank you so much, sir or ma'am. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm sorry about all the crying. I'm really hormonal still and still kind of processing the trauma of this, but we'll be back next time with some non-birth stories. Maybe something a little less stressful to talk about. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your support and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.